Well, good morning to you.
Morning.
We are going here and there and everywhere, you and I, are we not? To various parts of the globe.
Indeed.
First, you're off to the US.
I am. I'm off to Miami and New York
Very
to meet
good.
some interesting people, to go and watch Inter Miami play St. Louis in a game, to meet various people in New York that are involved with the MLS.
Excellent.
Apparently not the NFL, because they don't like some of my comments about comparing the NFL Super Bowl to the Premier League. They don't want that conversation with me. But some interesting people. The guy, I think the chief executive of Relevant Sports, the guy that's overturned the ability for domestic games with FIFA rulings to be played in America. So we'll be having a conversation with him.
Good.
So yeah, off to the States for 3 or 4 days.
What are these interviews? Are they tapping into Simon Jordan's knowledge?
Well, that won't last for long, will it? No, there are a bunch of interviews. There's also a bunch of filming going on over there because of this TV show that I'm doing. Beckham's over there, so we might see if David's around and a few other things.
Oh, David's around.
And Chris Henderson, who's the sporting director of Inter Miami, is someone that's known to me and people around me.
See, it's not just all about a Thursday and a column in the Mail and then talkSPORT with Jim White. You are omnipresent in the media.
Well, I managed to avoid a trip to Saudi, that's for sure.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. As everybody knows, yesterday on the show, we had covered the announcement of Usyk Fury 2 on the show. Turki Alalshikh, the man at the top of Saudi boxing, had revealed on social media, that's it, it's December the 21st. So Fury will go in against Usyk once again out there. And I think that, Simon, took Frank Warren and Alex Krasiuk, the two fighters' respective promoters, somewhat by surprise. But anyway, that was that. And of course, there had been a bit of pushback as far as the Saudis were concerned to some of our observations made on the show. Not least that it appeared big time boxing had all but moved from London to Saudi. Why was that? The impact it was having on the sport. So there we were, just almost saying goodbye at the end of yesterday's show, with the company of one Danny Murphy and two Chris Kirkland, when a call came in, and it was the very man himself, Turki Alalshikh, who wanted to join us on the show.
We just announced the big fight, the rematch. I have a lot of calls with the camp of Tyson and the camp of Usyk to decide the day. It will be much bigger, and the undercards will be much bigger. I asked my teams to invite you, talkSPORT, to the event in 5 versus 5, especially you and Simon, but they tell me you are on vacation. Simon will go to America.
I think Simon is working
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that, Turkey, because obviously, from our point of view, we've heard a lot of things about the response to some of the observations that we've made, and it's always interesting to hear it firsthand from the person. I think lots of the things that you're doing in the sport are very interesting, and of course, when you challenge the orthodoxy, people will push back against it. But I'm fascinated with what you're doing and your developments and your format creation, and you're making fights happen.
There is some points I am with you, and I can understand some points. Of course, you want the big fights in your country, and I know I understand this. But, we are now supporting this sport. The boxing have a lot of problem in the last 15, 20 years.
I agree.
As you see.
I agree.
And we want you and all the people and the fans understand what we are doing. Of course, we are in the beginning, and we don't want to take a place of London or Vegas or nothing, but we want to put our city in the map. And I think this is our right. No one like us doing great card like this in this time.
So that was him, Turki Alalshikh, telling us yesterday, Simon, about what they're doing. And this 5v5 event happens this weekend. talkSPORT already out there. Producer Ed is already out there with Spencer Oliver. And it's 5 fighters from the Queensberry camp with Frank Warren against 5 fighters from the Eddie Hearn camp. And that will take place in Riyadh this weekend. I will go to that, and I'll try and meet up with him. But what did you take out of that? What was your takeaway yesterday? Because you and I went in different directions fairly swiftly after the show.
Well, I mean, look, the follow-on from that was me also saying to him that you don't like criticism. And we've made observations. And he's entirely right to suggest that there's no God-given right for anybody to have boxing in Madison Square Garden or Las Vegas or London. but you shut us down. You banned us from your event. So if you want to be judged by those standards, you have to accept constructive criticism.
Yeah.
And the observations that were made about atmosphere wasn't some massive slur on the culture of Saudi Arabia. You know, I listened to what he had to say. I do think there's lots of innovation. I still have the same concerns. I do worry about sport being used for image laundering. I'm not going to be pious and talk about human rights issues, because we've far from got it right in this country about some of the things that we do. But the bottom line is people will have that issue. And I do have a concern about the ecosystem of boxing being broken by the agenda of one particular state that wants to do something that's primarily about promoting itself. So with that in mind, I do have these reservations, and I would say them to him. It wasn't the time yesterday, it was a very brief conversation.
Yeah.
And I do believe, you know, last time we had a conversation about the atmosphere, some of his people ran around telling me that I was a xenophobe, and I'm not going to have that sort of nonsense. I don't work for the Saudis. I'm not going to be sycophantic and have to bow down and kowtow to people. And the one thing I took away from it, which is my greatest delight, is I don't have to listen to the nonsense from Tyson Fury and his bunch of miscreants about which fights we can and can't go to.
Well, exactly. And some of those points that you've just outlined live on air this morning, if I get the length of Turki Alalshikh, I'll put them to him when I'm out there, because that's the whole point of going. Of course, to some, it seemed like we were bowing and scraping when he joined us yesterday, not least Eddie Hearn. You'll enjoy this.
Because when he puts it on your toes, everyone gives it the old, His Excellency, His Excellency. And then he comes on talkSPORT, who have been slagging, the whole new vision for boxing off for so long. It's like, oh, hello, Your Excellency. Oh, hello, we'd love to come out and support your show. So it is what it is. Look, it was brilliant. Turkey stuck it on the toes of Jim White and Simon Jordan. Obviously, they melted, and they'll be out joining the party on Saturday night.
I didn't melt, did you?
Well, like most things with Eddie Hearn, there's the truth and then there's Eddie Hearn's version of things. So, listen, the guy phoned in. He wanted to talk to us.
Yeah.
We gave him an audience.
Yeah.
I think he spoke well. I think he spoke with passion. I think it's interesting because I'm the one that's been running around saying that I will not be calling people His Excellency, because I don't feel like I need to be that sycophantic. And I'll leave that to the others that have got their hands in his pockets. And he interestingly addressed that issue without prompting. I don't want that title. It's an honour that's bestowed upon me. So I get it, and I understand what they're trying to do. They want to build. Boxing's been around a lot longer than the Saudi intervention, so we'll see what happens. But my main focuses are the same things, which is, if you want to be considered to be a place that boxing can go to, that does not make you immune to criticism. And last time round, you banned people like me and you banned people from press conferences, and that's not the way to operate. And if that's all changed, then people can say, well, I was there, I saw it for myself, and people can have fair views. And people can then debate the idea of whether these super fights that are wonderful for boxing, the fact that these guys are doing it is a plague on everyone else's houses. All these other guys that have been running around for years, the Mauricio Solomons, the Eddie Hearns and the Frank Warrens that haven't been able to make these fights, now are getting it made by someone else who's taking over the sport, and they all now work for him.
For sure. They're
all now
doing what they couldn't do.
Absolutely.
Having said that, we were shut out for a while because of some of our views on this show, and now it appears we're back in. So if we're back in, I should be at liberty, you would think, to ask what I want to ask when I'm out there. And that's the whole point of going.
It's the same as what was in Qatar.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point, if there's a fight that I want to go to, I will go to Saudi. I won't be going on their dime. I don't work for them. I'll go and watch a fight that I want to watch if I want to watch it. They're going to be a boxing mecca.
Yeah.
And as long as it's for the benefit of the sport. My concern is, if you drive the price up on every sport that you're involved in, if you drive the economics up on football, if you drive the economics up in golf, if you drive the economics up in boxing, people will say, well, that's the business of sport. But what it does is it actually creates problems in the ecosystem for everybody else. And there has to be a balance. And I think that's a reasonable conversation that grown-ups can have.
Yeah.
And all the other guys that are running around with their hands in these pockets, they've got vested interest.
What do you think has been the biggest game changer regards what they've been doing?
Money.
Well, in that
Money.
part, I mean, what's been going on in that part of the world, I include Qatar in that. I mean,
Money.
Influence, perception, the World Cup in Qatar, the Saudi Pro League, the purchase of Newcastle United,
Money.
Live Golf, boxing.
Money. I mean, look, he's absolutely right. And I absolutely understand his sentiments of saying we have a right to be able to participate. And I absolutely agree. No one has a God-given right. There is legacy and there is heritage and there is the orthodoxy, but everything evolves. And so let's be clear. The motivations, and the World Cup was brilliant. It wasn't without its challenges of how it was awarded, and we'll debate that forever.
Yeah. And the Qataris didn't like some of the things you and I asked.
No,
when we were out there.
And that's fair. But the thing about in life is, if you don't like what someone has to say, what you do is you stand up your argument, and you either beat them in an argument, or you accept that people have different views. And that's the difference. And what we saw yesterday was the fellow in charge of this, this not so much assault, but this onslaught onto sport, came onto a show and gave you his views. And, and again, I make the same point.
Yeah.
I said to him on air, well, I didn't say it, robustly. I just simply said, you guys didn't like what we said. And they didn't, and I heard some of the things that people said. I heard the representation that was made to management here about, because I'd said it was lacking an atmosphere, that was somehow xenophobic. And I'm not prepared to have that sort of observation made about me.
No, hence we pushed back on it. And that's why we were somewhat surprised, but nonetheless delighted that he joined us yesterday.
You got a good fight card to go to. Brilliant fight event. They're putting on, and their format creation, Jim, and their innovation.
Yeah.
It's not sycophantic to say they will create formats. They will change the orthodoxy of how the four belts and how the divisions don't make fighters fight one another, because they've got the ability to cleanse the room with money. They'll cleanse it. They'll take away all the barriers to entry for all the big fights. And they'll do this single-handedly.
Well, he's even talking about a World Cup of boxing. I mean, we'll see where that goes.
This is smart stuff, Jim.
Yeah.
Format creation. When you create a format, you look at the things that have been created. Ricky Gervais has become a significantly wealthy guy by creating a format called The Office, which was nicked and put over into America as a TV show. Right?
Yeah.
This format creation for boxing, this will be significant, and I think it's interesting.
That's what's put them on the map, Simon, hasn't it?
Well, currently what's put them on the map is money, because they can walk into a room and say, right, how much do you want? How much do you want? How much? The economics of it don't matter to us right now, because this is seed capital. We're building something, so we're prepared to throw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of reals or dirhams or dollars or whatever currency we want to talk into a situation and move the barriers to entry. What then happens is, when it levels out, we see what happens. And I don't want the Saudi phenomenon to be a stalking horse to drive the price up for boxing domestically for everybody.
Yeah,
for the golfers to be domestically prejudiced by the challenges that they bring because LIV wants to do something, or because football wants to do something, foreign ownership brings out a certain outcome. These are legitimate concerns.
Yeah,
but they shouldn't be undermined or derided. But also, let's have it right. What they're currently doing is putting on brilliant events. And that's a fair comment. It's not sycophantic. I don't know what the atmosphere is like. I don't think it's anything vaguely resembling British and American fights.
Yeah.
But it's early in its development.
Well, funnily enough, boxing's top rank president Todd DeBuff will join us later on the show. We shall talk to him about what's going on out there. We'll also dip our toe into Riyadh later before we go today. Fair play to you, Simon. There's Rob. Credit to this show. As a boxing fan, it's refreshing to have a true opinion without feeding any narrative. Loving how Simon just isn't being a nodding dog in front of the Saudis, because they have trillions. There's Mike. Jim, when you're out there, ask that fella if he'd like to buy Everton. Mike, I don't know if that'll come into the conversation.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.